Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. It's quite an unusual way of doing this for DIA, but hopefully people will find this a more accessible way of tapping into our general meetings. It's something I've been doing for quite a long time in other organisations. It's certainly more efficient and accessible than dragging everybody to a remote location or expecting them to pay for it as part of a conference day. So we're trying it. We'll take feedback on it. And we hope that more people will participate as we do more of these meetings per year, because webinars will allow us to speak to more of our members on a more regular basis. I'm delighted that so many of you have been able to join us today, but we will be recording this webinar today and placing it on the website afterwards. So people who weren't able to join, as a lot of people can't necessarily take time off their busy working lives for this, will be able to see it afterwards. And of course, the lines of communication are always open. If any member at any time has a question about how we run DIA, what DIA is up to, the industry in general, then don't hesitate to ask us that question. I clearly publicise my personal email address here, and lots of people find that way of getting to me, or they call me direct, or they speak to the team here. And there's no question that we can't be asked. And there's no answers that we won't give. So please bear in mind that you don't have to wait for an AGM to ask us anything about DIA. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if that's okay with everybody on the line, is I'm going to go into a bit of a glance in the rearview mirror on what happened in 2014 with DIA, and then I'm going to focus on how we're going forward into 2015. And then I'm very happy to take any questions that people might have. Olivia's keeping an eye on those questions as we go through, so we'll pick those up as we do. I've got a couple of questions that came to me beforehand, but I know questions are going to occur as I go through this presentation. So let us have it after that. Okay, first of all, I'm going to have a look at who we are. I think it's useful to remind people who DIA is and what DIA does. And although we have a magazine that comes out every month and we have a website and we have lots of other communications, it's useful just sometimes to crystallise what we are as an organisation, because some of our members surprisingly know one part of us but they're not aware of the other stuff that we do as well. So just a reminder, we are one of the UK's largest driver training, road safety and education bodies. We're not just a professional membership body, we're a well-respected road safety expert organisation. We deliver training as well as represent trainers, and we do that in a very wide span of areas, direct to the public driver or to a driver trainer or to a fleet driver as well, and that's international as well as UK based. At the moment, we have over 11,500 users of our services, active members, but there's probably over 20,000 people using our services worldwide. And that is made up of a combination of members themselves, or international clients who we are doing testing, training, accreditation, or non-DIA members who may be utilising some of our paid-for events or our free roadshows, which we put on to encourage more participation from ADIs in CPD. We are the largest professional association for all types of rider and driver trainer. We're the largest ADI association, but surprisingly we're the largest rider training representative body as well. And we have the largest number of rider trainers working with any professional body that represents trainers specifically. So we do work with other large organisations like the Motorcycle Association too. We are the only driver training body, surprisingly, that spans the whole range of driver training. Organisations like IAM and ROSPA predominantly focus on post-test. We start right from pre-test, we go across fleet, we go across all vehicle classes and all types of vehicle as well. So that gives DIA a big mass of expertise and experience on which we're regularly tapped for consultative purposes with people like DFT, but also private companies, other road safety organisations, the lot. So we've got a lot of intellectual property, a lot of assets there that we do a lot with, quite frankly. It keeps us all very busy. We do hold consultative status to both Department of Transport and to the DVSA, the new name for the DSA, and we are regularly consulted and involved in development of driver standards, driver training and road safety policy, and that's a very privileged position we don't take lightly. We take our position there to consult on your behalf to the DVSA very seriously, and equally we take on board what they're saying and help to communicate that out to all the different stakeholders that we have there as well. We are a respected authority on driver and rider training, and it's surprising the diversity of organisations that we work with, both here and overseas. I briefly touched on there that we actually work with a lot of private and public sector companies in the UK, but there's also a lot of international bodies that call on our services, and that can range from the Royal Oman Police through to entire governments and road safety ministries in other countries, right down to driving schools in places as far-flung as Malaysia, the Middle East and the Far East as well. So there's a real diversity of what we're doing in terms of giving our expertise and experience to other people. And members are also involved in that. It's not just the personnel here in Croydon. Quite a lot of members are involved in delivering our expertise overseas and in the UK. We were very, very pleased this year, 2014, to be invited to sit on the government's Road Safety Delivery Group. And we are the only driver education and training body, and certainly the only ADI association to be involved. That is somewhat of a combination of us kicking down doors, not just knocking on them, to ensure that driver trainers are involved in high-level consultation on both road safety and driver training matters, but also those stakeholders starting to recognise that we should be involved in these consultations. We're not having to force as much now. People are actually coming to us and saying, you should be involved in this. That particular body, I won't touch on that too much because I've covered it in the magazine, but there'll be more stuff coming from them. That meets about 4 times a year and is very focused on what can we do practically. Not necessarily regulation, but what can we do practically to try and resolve some of the road safety issues in the UK? And we are a big advocate for driver training and professional driver training. It's not just about throwing money at lots of road safety initiatives where we show a gory video and hope that the kids all comply with that. It's actually about delivering some training on the ground to people as well and getting more people involved in training, from parents to other licensed drivers too. So there's a lot going into that group at the moment, and hopefully we'll start seeing a few more outputs from it. Diamond is one of only 3 accredited courses for advanced driving and is the only one of all 3 advanced driving programs in the UK wholly delivered by approved driver trainers. Diamond somewhat lags behind, honestly, if I'm being honestly, IM and ROSPA in terms of its public profile, but we have plans to do something about that this year to make sure that people recognise that this is one of the toughest civilian advanced driving tests, and it is always delivered by a professional driver trainer rather than relying on a network of volunteers who can sometimes not actually be professional driver trainers, and that's one of our principles. We want to promote quality professional driver training at every opportunity. And we are the only DI association still to offer a fully accredited and comprehensive CPD programme. We're very proud of the work that Olivia Baldock, who is sat next to me, does. I don't claim any credit for that at all. And the expansion of that programme to offer more topics at more locations and make it more accessible to more driver trainers to get on board and develop their professional skills and knowledge. So that's just a little bit of a reminder, and if it sounds like we're promoting the DIA aggressively there, well, good. That is part of my job, and also if members sometimes come to me and don't understand who we are, you know, we need to do a little bit of better communication of all the things we're involved in so people see what we're up to every day. I'm just going to go into now some kind of bullet points on performance over 2014 so people can see what we're actually up to last year. Olivia's just desperately trying to get me back on track. I've got my notes, but you can't see them. Technical picture. Okay, so we're going to start off with the operational side of things, which is always a question that people seem to be fascinated by at AGMs, normally other associations. Membership held very steady in 2014. We were pleased to see that. There was an upswing in monthly joiners, month on month. And that is very encouraging if you set that against other membership bodies, not just in driver training. I work with membership groups across professional sectors, and they're all actually seeing quite a lot of decline in membership as times get tough out there. But we've been pretty buoyant in terms of new members. Leavers in general, the reason that people leave DIA's membership is because they're retiring, and that accounts for nearly 90% of our exited members. We do study our figures very, very closely to try and understand why people don't want to be involved with DIA anymore and try and do something about that when people feel like that. But generally the people that are leaving us are actually going off to enjoy retirement or they're changing career as well. We are a financially solid organisation. We have no debt. Management have invested heavily in new initiatives, which does enable us to offer more resources to members, either free or including membership, or when we have to charge, that means we can do it at a much more subsidised rate. We put in place quite severe efficiency measures when we took over DIA in 2012. It is a much changed organisation. The management here are very experienced in operational management of large organisations and particularly membership bodies. I myself have been responsible in the past for managing a membership body of over 185,000 members, and efficiency is as important at this level as it is at nearly 200,000 members. We do that because we want to keep a tight rein on operations, and we want to make sure the services we have to provide and do have a cost are provided at the minimum cost that we can. We do resource all of our services, the majority of the main services, in-house. We try not to send them out of house to a third party because we want to be able to control the quality of the membership benefits. We do work with some other third parties, but all the main services you enjoy, from the magazine to the training, to the administration, all of that is supplied in-house by full-time staff. We don't rely on part-time volunteers. We have a committee for advisory purposes, and they are extremely helpful professional ADIs, but we want people who can work with us full-time, so we can represent you at every opportunity, and we're not telling people when there's an important consultation we can't make their meetings, rearrange them around my diary, or we're not answering phones and being available to people. So we are committing to giving a full-time service, and that's what we pride ourselves on doing. And our team is highly experienced. We are actually unique in this respect, that not only do we have fully qualified expert driver trainers working here with probably over 100 years combined experience between them, we also have experts in finance, marketing, legal, HR, design, communications, lobbying. Each person who works here is a professional and a qualified professional, and it means that we can represent members professionally, and also that we can advise members from a professional and expert standpoint as well. We're not just putting our finger in the air. And sometimes when we have to do that, we're professional enough to go off and research it. So if we don't know the answers, we know to go and try and get them from a more expert body than ourselves as well. So operations are going quite well for us at the moment, but we're always keen for members to tell us when you feel that we're falling down on that. We will do something about that. We will try our best to resolve any situations you're having with our operational side, and it is really important that members tell us about that as well. I'm just going to move on to training and CPD briefly. I think this is an area in which DIA has excelled this year. Now, bear in mind, I'm not just bigging up DIA here. I'm probably riding this team harder than any customer could. And as a professional marketeer, one of my roles is to look at it as a customer does and compare it to what else is out there in the market and make sure we're fit for competition. I think training and CPD has done incredibly well this year, and that is thanks to the team of Olivia Baldock, of Karen Bransgrove, of Mike Frisbee, and anybody else that's been involved in delivering and developing training this year. We've offered over 40 CPD events in the last year, and those have included free webinars, which we're up to about 2 per month now. Our National Standards Days have been an absolute sellout, and we've had excellent feedback on those. And there's been over 20 free roadshow workshops happening as well. They all take a lot of time in terms of development, but I can say, hand on heart, that the team have absolutely enjoyed doing this kind of work and would far rather be out on the road talking to you guys than listening to me asking them where the next training event is coming in the office. I don't think any other ADI associations offers actually the extent of training that we now offer, and actually at such good value. We've taken a very conscious decision to keep costs low. We've seen costs creeping up of ADI events, and there is a truism that we do have to invest in our CPD. In my field of marketing, you'll be lucky if you get away with less than £500 for a day CPD. However, we're aware of the tight budgets that a lot of driving schools are operating on. And so we've actually lowered some of the cost of the event over time. For example, in 2012, one of our conferences or professional development days was about £79, £89 for members and £99 for non-members, and now we're offering the standard days at £69. When I see other organisations offering them for nearly double that price, and I know the costs to provide are actually similar, you know, I do have to wonder about value for money, and we will always strive to make sure what we do is value for money for our members. We do a lot of stuff free because we do realise that people will struggle with budgets, but we do want to encourage people that it is an investment, and to give people a taster first, to see them enjoy that, to benefit that, is good when we see people then starting to come on the longer courses as well, and work towards qualifications. And using the roadshows and using the webinars has been successful in getting more ADIs who probably might not have done any CPD if there was any cost attached to it at all, involved in that this year. And we're good, it's good to see some people engaging in the longer term courses such as the DIPDE and the coaching programme. But the intention here is to offer such a wide variety that people can dip in, they can take taste of things, they can go into longer term programmes, they can get things that are close to them if they want to go physically to an event, or they can take online learning options so they can build their learning flexibly around their time and their geographical location as well. But again, if there's a topic we're missing, if there's a location we're missing, if there's a spot we're not quite hitting in terms of our training and CPD, then I would love to hear from the membership on that. And we do regularly survey people as to what they want as well, so please tell us, and then we can do stuff that you guys want to actually see. Another important part of our performance measures in 2014 was to look at how we do lobbying and representation. This is where the likes of myself and Mike mainly are going out and talking to the key influencers on policy and regulation in our sector. It's talking to everybody actually in a way outside of our sector, because those people make big decisions about how our industry works. And although we talk to members first, we also need to go out there and talk a lot outside of the industry to get the right people making the right decisions. I'd argue that we actually spend more time with DFT and DVSA than most other organisations. That's literally, again, just because we push ourselves into meetings and actually they're coming to us more to ask us about our involvement. And it's also because we are consulting on such a wide range of issues. We're not just looking at ADIs teaching learners, we're looking at rider training, we're looking at fleet, we're looking at lots of different things. So we do get involved and have our fingers in quite a lot of pies there. In the past year, that's involved a lot of consultation on novice drivers, on telematics, on training standards, code of practice, fit and proper procedures. The L test is now something that's coming into a trial period where we look to change the driving test. CBT is just about to undergo consultation, how we deliver CBT. What are we going to do about post-test licensing and training? And we're involved in a lot of consultations that are still ongoing. So nothing's finished at the moment, unfortunately, with a lot of those. Some decisions have been made. Obviously, the standards check came in April. But there's a lot of stuff that's still ongoing, and we'll continue to consult with members about that. I've just talked about the Road Safety Delivery Group, so I won't labour that point. We also took part last year in trying to form a strategic group. I chaired the first meeting, which we proposed we should have a much more formal way for all the associations to work together. I'm sure many of you have heard of the issues that that first working group had. That was the NSG, the National Association Strategic Group. Sadly, that didn't work out as we wanted it to. I think there was goodwill from all sides there, but I and my team here personally want to focus on moving forward. We don't want to have to sit in meeting after meeting discussing old news that isn't actually going to take the industry forward or individuals working in it. So we made a decision that we wanted to work in a much more proactive way and a much more positive way. AGI-JNC, DISC and MSA. DISC are the Scottish representative associations for drivers, just by the way, if you're not aware of who they are, decided to move away from that group and form our own group. DVSA have, Alice Peoples and others have already met with us as a new working group. The National Association's Strategic Partnership is our new name. And we continue to have very productive and positive meetings with those people that we need to move forward on policy and regulation. And we represent on individual members. We're not just doing things at a high level. The team here, including myself, depending on whether it's a business-related query or it's a driver training query, are talking to members who are having issues every single day on the ADI Help Desk. The ADI Help Desk is being incredibly busy all throughout this year. Not surprising, because obviously the standards check has caused some people to really examine what they're doing in their work and how that fits the national standard. But just because people have got to know that these guys here on the desk every day do have a lot of advice and good advice to share, but also people want to just talk things through and get somebody to help them get through some issues. And we will talk to members on anything connected with their professional career. That could be a pupil dispute, issues with contracts and terms and conditions, franchise issues, problems with suppliers. I spent a lot of time talking to people who've got involved with dodgy internet providers, problems with tests, test centre personnel, DVSA personnel. There are some highly unusual, highly interesting things coming through the help desk, and we try and translate those into the magazine so people can see as case studies the things that happen here, and they might help them if they haven't got round to picking up the phone to us as well. And we continue to grow that service and hope that more and more members actually use that, because those who've used it give us excellent feedback. In fact, particularly around the standards, we've had a lot of calls saying, you know, I've got my grade A and I'd just love to thank the ADA Help Desk team here because I think they were pivotal in mentoring me through the process. So that's really rewarding when we get that kind of feedback. But we haven't just worked in the ADI world or with DVSA or DFT. We've also been working with cycling groups, pedestrian groups, motorcycling groups, and other road user groups. So sometimes people will say, well, why aren't you working with these people over here? Believe me, we try and work with as many people as we can. The insurance industry, motor manufacturers, all those kind of individuals will have a tap on their door at some point if we feel that there's a benefit to working with them, and also they come to us to get our input as well. So there's a hell of a lot of partnership going on here between DIA and the wider world, and I hope to see us reaping more benefits from that in 2015. In public relations and education, which is kind of loosely aligned to what we do in lobbying, we continue in line with our target to reach out and educate the public. There is a real gap in how we as an industry have promoted ourselves, and that is actually directly to your customer base. Membership bodies should not just be concerned with serving your needs. We need to help and understand how you can serve your customers' needs better, and that is the pupils, the mum and dad, the fleet decision makers, all of those people. So we continue to build profile and relationships in those areas too. I have to say thank you to some of our commercial partners, Goodyear, Ingenie and others, Collingwood Insurance, who have all been pivotal in getting us to the audience of mum and dad. We don't just work with sponsors because it's nice to work with sponsors or they give us money. We work with sponsors because they have huge databases of our end customers, the members of the public. So often we'll engage with them more so to be able to use their communication channels to get to mum, dad and potential pupil as well. Sometimes they also have political influence, so we work together to find where's the sweet spot to get our messages across to who we need to influence. DIA and Goodyear this year worked very proactively to get a school pack which included a video with Mike Frisbee strutting his stuff on a racetrack, talking about young driver issues, talking about the things that affect young drivers the most. And that got sent into thousands of schools UK-wide. Goodyear wouldn't have done it without us and our expertise and experience. Equally, we couldn't have done it without Goodyear having that distribution network into a lot of schools. So those kind of partnerships are really productive for DIA and for its members as well. Mike was on Mumsnet. I was on BBC News. We've been all over Radio 4, Radio 2, and we've been across all the national newspapers. In the last 6 months alone, our kind of hit rate in the newspapers has gone up, particularly around issues such as the learning to drive trial and changes to the test as well. And that's been good because it's at least giving us an opportunity to try and put some records straight, correcting newscasters on the fact it's a turn in the road, not a three-point turn, and you know, helping people understand what driver training is all about. We will hopefully do more of that and already have plans to do that over the next year. We'll ramp up even more what we do. And what we've done to help us do that is appeal to members. You may have seen this on an email or in the magazine. We'd like more members to come and get involved in media work. We can help you do media work in your local community and raise your profile as an individual instructor, but equally we'd like you to come and help us. It's often that a news channel or radio program or a newspaper will call us and they want to turn around a story in 24 hours. We need somebody in Salford at BBC there, we need somebody in Yorkshire, we need somebody everywhere, and getting a media opportunity is one thing, keeping it and making sure you're the voice on there is another, and having members regionally who can speak on not just behalf of DIA but on behalf of quality driver training and get the messages out there is really important. So if you're interested in doing that, please drop our editor an email. We've already had a few people. We will give full media training. We'll have a webinar where we deliver some key points. Myself and Simon are qualified PR professionals, and we've done a lot of media training. So it's quite useful for members to do that, not just to do something for DIA, but but also to be able to deliver that when they want to do their own PR activity locally. So get involved if that's what you want to do. In terms of speaking more to the public, we'll talk about that when I get into 2015 at the moment, but we did experience a huge upswing in members of the public calling our help desk this year. Lots of questions about what does a good quality instructor look like, what should I be looking for in an instructor, problems maybe with instructors that we actually help resolve. So that, sometimes the problem was more the parental perception or the pupil having an issue because they didn't understand rather than actually our instructors. But generally it's nice to see that the public are starting to use us as an advisory service as well. And Find the Driving Instructor averages between 7,000 and 10,000 hits a month, so we know that people are using it. We just need to be able to convert those into better leads for members as well. That's part of our plans for 2015. And we've also done a lot of speaking engagements and presentations. As I said before, it was a bit of a case when I first started, certainly, that driver trainers are having to boot their way into the right meetings and the right conferences. Now we're actually being asked, and myself, Mike and others have been involved in young driver conferences, in fleet driver conferences, so that's been really encouraging to have a platform to talk about these things too. Right, I think new and improved member services. So in 2014, just a bit of a recap, because some of that was already in there, some of the kind of bigger achievements that we had. Free webinars for members only. We've done a lot of free roadshows, and a lot of those have been designed to attract non-members to come and talk to us and find out what we're about. But we are developing free opportunities that are just for our members only. So the webinars will continue apace. There'll be 2 of those each month. They will be delivered by the team, but also we're going to start bringing in more out-of-house experts. If you are an expert or you wanted to host a webinar with us, please give us details of what kind of things you'd like to do. It is quite difficult because we have to kind of do it from here in Croydon, but we have got ways of doing it remotely as well, so we can work with people all over the UK. But if you were to email training@driving.org or just ring Olivia or drop one of us a line, we'd love to hear from ideas about what the webinar should be, or if you are an expert in some area and you'd like to put on a webinar, we'd welcome your contribution as well. Got a new editor in Simon Miller, a very experienced membership editor, worked across a range of different industries on membership publication, and he's been really active about getting new contributors on board from the ADI world itself and from outside, engineers, insurers, the STIG, a lot of variety of people, so we've got a big variety of content. Sometimes those writers are going to be controversial. That's a good thing. We want talking points and we want people to come back at us. And communication is two-way, so we don't just want to put the magazine, we want to hear from our membership what they like, don't like about the magazine, so we can improve it as well. The National Standards Days were a new thing for us. Rather than just doing one conference per year where we had lots of different topics squeezed into one day and people kind of went out the door feeling like they'd just been hit with a thunderbolt, we're now trying to focus in on one subject so you can get in deep and learn a lot more in depth on these days and have more chances to actually take these subjects apart and talk to people about them. So the National Standards Days were an absolute sellout success. They focused on the national standards as a framework. We do not train people to crib for their standards check. That is a certain principle that we have here, whether you agree with it or not. The standards check is important, but it's once every 4 years, and we are very focused on developing trainers to have the wherewithal to up performance in the everyday, so that actually that check once every 4 years shouldn't come as a complete shock to the system. And that message seems to be welcomed by those people who come on this course, and they're taking it on the chin and taking that forward into really good performance in the everyday, but they're also reporting back that their standards check was a lot better than they thought it was going to be as well. And we feed in to DVSA a lot of the stuff that you guys give us on those days, because that is a process that's still under evaluation, it's still a new thing, so it's two-way. You guys are learning about it on these days, but we're also using that to learn stuff from you to take back to DVSA as they develop regulation around professional competence. We've also had some new team joining us in terms of Karen Branscove, a highly experienced ADI. She's sat next to me here, who's been a real boon to our help desk. We've had some excellent feedback on Karen in terms of her approach to member issues and just being generally a help to them. But Karen's also started writing a series for the magazine on health issues for an ADI, which was her idea, and I think that's been a real great addition to the magazine as well. And we've had Amy join us, our South African fireball, as marketing manager. She's helping us improve our events management, get the right technology in place to do more online events, to book events online. And she's been working as well to attract new corporate partners who will help us spread our message and also host our events as well. And she's really good at social media, much better than I am. I've certainly lost my skill in there over the years. She's right on the wave that's cresting of the use of social media at the moment. So she's a really good point of advice for members on how to get hold of digital marketing and make that work for you and your pupils, or digital platforms of any kind that can help deliver teaching out of car too. So use her and Karen and all the other teams for anything that you're looking at develop in 2015. Okay, road ahead for 2015. Apologies if I'm speaking quite quickly. I do have a want to do that. It's partly my Lancastrianisms and partly because I'm rushing through this. We have a number of new training and CPD events capitalising on the interest we had last year. So there'll be another 40 plus CPD events this year. That will still include the 2 free webinars per month. There will be a few more national standards days as we go to locations that we weren't able to go to in 2014. We're now working our way around areas of the UK where we've had the most demand. And there'll be another 20 free roadshow workshops happening as well. So if cost is a barrier to ADIs engaging in CPD, we try and remove that where we can by keeping costs low or offering taster sessions that are free as well. New topics for our PDDs will include drivers with diverse needs, and actually one of the people who is pivotal in us delivering that and developing that course, Sue Vernon, is one of our members. She's online today, I think. That is going to be looking at the fact that our population of pupils is very diverse. All pupils have specific needs. Every single one of us has a specific need when we're training. However, there are some pupils that have needs that need to be dealt with in a slightly different way and need different expert approaches. This course is about looking at how medical conditions, how our physiology, how our psychology, how lots of different things can be impaired, or we can have difficulties that prevent us from learning to drive in the same way as other people. Sue is an occupational therapist and very experienced ADI, and actually also advises quite a few groups from the NHS through to DVSA on pupils with specific needs, and also works with Headley Court, working with returning service personnel who probably exhibit, as Sue would say, most of the issues you might see with somebody with special needs in a driving context. And she's been pivotal in advising us on that course and will help deliver that as well. I think it does say in the National Standards Role 2, somebody who is more expert than me will correct me, I know, that whilst the DVSA does not expect you as ADIs to know exactly how to manage every pupil that comes through your door with diverse needs, you are expected to have a knowledge of how diverse needs in principle can affect driving, and you are expected to know where to refer somebody on, at least if you can't deal with that issue. That is part of the national standards, and it's a clear role in there. I think a lot of ADIs would honestly quite struggle with that, and our guys here had a baseline knowledge that they've had to get up on to be able to provide advice from the help desk. So this course is really looking at what are the diverse needs that could affect your pupils, how could you develop them, and to what extent should you personally be developing them, where to refer them onto, and how to help spot potentially somebody with the diverse needs that maybe hasn't necessarily been diagnosed yet but could be manifest in their driving as well. So I think that's a really, really exciting course, a really rewarding course, and it is a way of not just helping pupils with diverse needs, it also is a way of ADIs being able to diversify business should they want to go on from this course and look at specialising, as someone like Sue does, in another area and ramping up their qualifications experience to do that as well. And the course can be quite helpful in helping you decide whether this is an area that you want to diversify into, particularly as there is some level of investment in terms of teaching tools, the car itself, and your skills as well. All the details of these courses are on our website right now. We do run the coaching course as a 6-module course. Ian Edwards, Louise Walsh and others are pivotal in delivering that online course, but we will actually be doing a 1-day course in coaching this year as well. We've had a lot of demand for that. People want some face-to-face training and some exploration of what coaching is and how it can be brought into everyday delivery. So we've listened to that need and we're bringing a new course out there. Business development is also an area that is often overlooked in this industry. You are small businesses, and you sometimes will struggle with that, as all small business does, because you've got a special skill and you're trying to deliver that every day. You're also trying to be a HR person if you run more than one car and instructor, a finance person, a marketing person. There's so many hats. It's unbelievable running a small business like a driving school. And we just wanted to give people a day where we focused on how can you make that easier for yourselves? What are the tools you can use? What are the efficiency measures that can be put in place to make sure that you are developing business, but you're equally going out what you were trained to do in the first place, which is to deliver high quality training as well. We're also going to be looking at driver behaviour. It's really important. It's kind of another thing in the ADI qualification route that is not as big as it is in that parts 1, 2 and 3. It's inherent looking at driver behaviour, but it's not something that's explicit in the training, just like business skills aren't. So with some of these days, we're actually starting to help people who haven't found these skills yet or haven't developed the expertise plug the gap, but also those who really already have those skills, recognise those skills and learn how to develop them as well. So those courses will be coming soon. The driver behaviour will be with one of our GPC members who's developed that course with us, who's just finished her PhD in driver behaviour, and again it's a very exciting and an interesting course looking at the psychology, the attitudes, and how drivers actually think, so we can understand that in our training and work around that to deliver better drivers. We've got more publications to follow the success of our standards guide. We launched the Essential Guide to the Standards Check this year, and again that was really, really popular. We have taken a decision to publish more stuff in-house. We can see there's a lot out there for people to read and digest, but there's also a lot out there at quite a high cost. And often written by a third party who hasn't been involved in the decision making when regulation changes or there's a new way of training, whereas DIA is first hand involved in some of these things, so we should be writing about it a bit more than we do in the magazine. So we'll be focused on more publications this year. Happily welcome other people coming along and talking to us about publications that they'd like to write as well, because we are a publishing house and we can help people with that, not just in the publishing process, but also because we've got a large audience out there to distribute them to. We're going to put in a new e-learning platform that's going to allow us to deliver more interactive, accessible and flexible learning. We do have an e-learning platform at the moment and it works very well, but there are just much more efficient solutions that we can be using that will allow us to develop e-learning courses much quicker than we can do at the moment. So that's going to be a new thing coming. And we've got a spring conference focused on the diversity of driving behaviours we see across the age ranges. It's only my own personal view, but there is a disproportionate focus on young drivers in the UK at the moment. Every road safety body and its dog jumping on the bandwagon of having young driver conferences, which we did 2 years ago, and we continue to consult on novice driver issues and research them. However, young drivers only really constitute about a quarter of the accidents and fatalities in the UK each year. There is a much bigger group of licensed older drivers that we need to tackle, whether they are mum and dad, occupational drivers or older drivers. There is solutions that are needed there, and if we continue to focus on young drivers as being the only ill we have in the UK, we're in danger of neglecting those other segments which cause real risk as well. So the spring conference will look at how age can affect driving, what ages and what stages does our behaviour change, what are the different teaching approaches, coaching approaches we should be using with older drivers, occupational drivers, with younger drivers. We're going right across the ranges there with experts from each of those kind of segments or life stages, giving it and sharing their advice, but equally, as we always do on these events, getting some expertise and advice from members in the audience as to how they tackle these issues around different age segments as well. And we're creating more opportunities for members to be involved themselves in delivering training and CPD. The team are set a very hard task by me to come up with new initiatives, follow those through and get them out on the road. That means that they necessarily can't always be out on the road themselves. So we want more members to put themselves forward to be involved in delivering a day's training in their specialist areas. We will give full training and support in terms of learning materials to members, but if members come along and do that with us, we can offer it in more locations and to smaller groups on a more regular basis as well. Again, If you are a trainer who enjoys training groups, probably around 50 plus each time, maybe up to 100 in some cases, and you have training qualifications or expertise in training larger audiences, drop us a line at training@driving.org, and Olivia can talk to you about how we go about that. So we'd love to hear from some more people, and we do pay a day's training rate for people to deliver that for us as well. We're not expecting people to do that for free. And that could involve not just ADI training and our own CPD program. That actually we were also looking for people to help us with. We expand our fleet and corporate training provision as well. So it's if you are somebody who's also proficient in dealing with driver training, direct to drivers, also please send us your CV too. Okay, and I'm on to this page. I'll read it from the screen. That'd be useful rather than my own notes. We should be on 2015 lobbying and representation. Doesn't matter. That was probably my slide that was probably wrongly titled. Lots more lobbying and representation going on in 2015. As outlined in the slide from 2014, we'll continue to consult with DVSA and DFT, and that's not the slide that's on screen at the moment. That seems to have gone out the door. The first meeting of the year with DVSA will be held on January the 23rd. That's a meeting we've all been invited to as ADI Association's Barrister Peoples. I'm not sure what that's going to be about yet, as they've called it, but as usual we'll be taking a range of topics that we wish to discuss with the CEO of DVSA to that meeting as well. That is also the time that we'll have the first meeting of the year of the Strategic Partnership as well. We'll continue to be part of the government's group for road safety delivery, and we're also going to be hosting a roundtable with the Transport Minister, whose responsibility is road safety as well. So Robert Goodwill will be joining us in February to have a roundtable which will involve car manufacturers, the insurance industry, post-test trainers, road safety bodies, quite a lot of people actually. The focus of that particular group, I've called this meeting because I want to look at post-test training and what are the solutions or ideas to get more people involved in post-test training. This isn't just a big push for Diamond, however, obviously I'm going to be looking at doing that, but this is more about in lieu of regulation. And the reality is there is going to be very little regulation to command people to get involved in post-test training. We're just about to go into an election. Nothing will happen before that election, and it will take probably a 1 to 2 year cycle before the new party, if there is one, gets grips with road safety. So we can't expect things to change that much, sadly, in the next 2 years if we're just reliant on government ministers. And that is a practical reality that we must recognise but also must do something with. So what we're doing is we're using our kind of lobbying and representation, our partnerships with some serious commercial brands who can get to people who hold licenses and can in some ways compel them to get involved in post-test training, like insurers, to look at ideas that actually would work, that don't need a regulatory stick, but could offer some kind of carrot to get people involved in post-test training. If we get people involved in post-test training like mum and dads, we can hopefully involve them a lot more in the pre-test training regime. So if mum and dad recognise that they need to upskill, hopefully they'll be investing more in their children's training as well. And this is all about getting positive messages out, the right messages, and educating the public and other stakeholders too on how important it is to invest in good quality professional driver training, the right amount with the right people. So those are some of the lobbying things that we're doing immediately. At the start of this year, but those will continue throughout the year, and as we do stuff and as we hear about stuff that we should be involved in, or as members come to us with issues that are either regional test centre closures or issues with a particular set of examiners or pupil issues within a certain area or on a national basis, you know, we'd love to hear about some of the things that members want to have more involvement in. The trial to revamp the L-test is starting up more or less now. A lot of you may have had consultations at your local test centre to go through what the trial will do. They will be looking for ADIs to take part. We are the research partner with the research body that is actually conducting the trial, so it's likely that DIA members may have more of an involvement than most. And we'll be sending surveys around from that research body in the next few months to our members to help them form the research project. I think it's a very welcome thing. I think there's a lot of distraction caused by the media about three-point turn, turning the road, or sat-nav being involved. This is just about making sure that the test is reflective of the real risks that face driving in real life when they get that licence in their hands. And the trial is aiming to look at where we can increase independent driving and an examiner's ability to observe whether somebody is making independent decisions and how risky those decisions are and how they cope with risk in the car. And the best methodology to do that as well. So a lot of factors will be looked at, a lot of research will be done. It's not a done deal that it's going to be removing turning the road and replacing it with a parallel park on the opposite side of the road. And there are very genuine reasons for things, including like sat-nav in the test and the distractive issues that they have there. So it's keeping an open mind and getting involved in that research as much as you can and presenting pupils for that. They're looking for 1,000 pupils for the trial, and those pupils will be going through a real test as well under these conditions, and seeing what the results of that are, and hopefully we will achieve a test that we all think is much more fit for purpose than the test that we see at the moment in time. But as I said, there'll be several stages throughout this process that you guys can get involved in giving feedback and being directly involved in the trial by providing pupils as well. So you will be part of shaping that. So that's lobbying and representation, more strategic partnerships, more consultation, more stuff happening there. And then we're going to be working on that's all right, I know where we are. Everybody else might not, but I know where we are. We're going to do more work with the public, and our big push this year is to launch a series of new learner products and services ourselves. There will be a new web platform for learners, a hub for information about learning to drive. It's been a while in the making. People will remember me talking about this when I came in 2012. It does take a bit of time to get it right and to get the right thing rolled out there. I am often guilty of promising things before they're possibly ready. But now we're at a stage to be able to launch that. There's a lot of information out there for learners. Some of it is provided by bodies who know nothing about learning to drive, such as insurance companies. And we wanted to get the balance right. We wanted to get the expertise out there. We wanted to paint a picture to mum, dad and learner. What is the right route? What's the right things to be looking for? What are the questions they should be asking themselves and their instructors? What's the right thing to do here? And it's not just for learners. Through that we hope to educate licence holders as well and get them involved in the process. So exciting news there. I will tell you more as we get more information and it's ready to launch. So there's going to be things to incentivise learners to get involved with DIA members, more so than other instructors as well. So it's a bit about marketing DIA's members as the best quality professionals that you can engage in, as much as it is talking about quality learning to drive. There's going to be more PR activity, and that will come off some of these learner services. Recruiting media spokespeople, as we spoke about before. Engaging with parents is really important. It's important for you, it's important for us. So we'll be bringing out some accompanied practice products and resources. Those are more so for you guys to be able to use with your pupils and their parents, rather than us directly going to the parents. But we'll be using groups such as Mumsnet and Goodyear and people who've got big parental audiences to get the messages out there, that hopefully stimulates more parents to ask you how they can get involved and how they can be involved properly, and in a way that is a positive impact on their child's driving rather than a negative impact on what you're trying to teach them. And that we will start giving you more information on almost straight away with our new roadshow, which will happen in the next month or so, Parent Power, where we talk about communicating with parents, how to do that better, how to get them on board, not just their children, but maybe teaching them some new skills themselves and refreshing their driving. And it's all about working in partnership with parents and getting them involved. And we'll also work with fleets and other occupational driver groups to encourage more effective driver development of licence holders. So we're not just focused on mum and dad and the learner, we're also going to be talking to other groups about how we can get some positive messages out there about professional driver training and what good looks like in that world. And then I should be on to, if my slides are still in the right order, what other things are we doing in 2015? We've got some new services and products we should be talking about. I've got those and they should be on screen in a moment. Okay, so some of the new and improved services that we've got going forward in 2015, and again, please tell us where you think we should be improving and what new things we could be doing as well. We can't always wave a magic wand, but we will listen and evaluate what opportunities there are. More free webinars, more training, more topics, more locations. We've already covered that. New roadshow workshops. New e-learning solutions from a new piece of e-learning that's coming in straight away, taking you through driving licence kind of restrictions and things you should be checking, amongst other e-learning tools. We hope to introduce the member fuel card this month or early next month. I hope to introduce that in 2014 autumn, but issues with the fuel card provider themselves and the fact that I will not give away data to a third party that you guys haven't already agreed to, meant that didn't roll out as quickly as it should have done. So it's the choice of fuel card, making sure it's the most competitive and it's free to our members, and also somebody who didn't demand that we shared your data with them, which we will not do. So that should be coming in the next month because we've got a new provider on board for that. We will be launching a pupil lesson finance scheme. We've talked about this slightly in the magazine. What's held us up is to offer any kind of scheme like this. We have to be regulated by the Financial kind of Services Association, what is known as the FCA now. That's really important. DIA is the only AGI association that already has financial regulation. That means our professional indemnity and public liability insurance, we are able to talk to you directly about that because two financial services professionals actually manage DIA and we're regulated to talk to you about financial stuff. And that's quite important in terms of not misleading people, giving them the wrong advice. The same applies to operating any finance scheme. So we've had to wait for approval from the financial regulators to offer this scheme. So that's taken us some time, but we wanted to do it right and be above board. But what that means is in 2015, we will be able to offer all of our instructors the ability to give credit to their pupils. There's many newspaper headlines to do with learning to drive that says less pupils are learning, not now just because of the insurance and car operating costs, but also because they apparently can't afford to learn to drive. Now we need to do a lot more PR about how learn to drive is not just an expense, it's an investment, and actually it's very good value for money for what you get out of it. However, we also need to do things to encourage people to get involved, and allowing students to pay off their driving lessons over a longer period of time is one way of doing that. That means that you as the instructor don't have to take the financial risk and you don't have to wait to be paid for your lessons. We would be offering the finance in that situation. The pupils would be paying us back over time. You would be paid under this scheme the moment that the student takes the lesson. But independent instructors struggle to be able to provide credit, particularly for a block of 40 lessons or more, which we all want students to be involved in to make sure they have the right number of lessons to prepare them to be an effective driver. The scheme will operate on the basis of students or their family members or whoever wants to buy them from can actually buy a voucher, which if you're happy to accept it, each instructor locally will be able to use these vouchers. So it would just be a paid for voucher that operates just on giving you the voucher and it's paid at the time. Or the pupil will be buying a block of lessons and paying that back over a much longer period, but the instructor will always get paid at the time of the lesson as well. As I said, we will take financial risk on that. We hope that tool will be very useful in attracting pupils to our members and making sure that pupils actually invest in the right number of lessons rather than trying to shortcut the number of lessons they have down to what they think they can afford at the time as well. And we'll only be offering those in blocks of 20 hours plus. We don't want to be seen to be encouraging people to be taking things like 10 lessons in a very short period of time. So we won't offer any less than that. So more information coming on that soon. Sorry for the delay on that. That is literally to do with the long-winded process of going and working with the financial regulator and doing all their paperwork and crossing all the dots and crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's. But it's good because it means the product that we will provide, we can give confidence to both mum and dad, the pupil and the instructor, that it's a high-quality product and it's regulated as well. So there are protections in place for all users. Learner website will accompany a lot of that kind of thing. The other thing we're launching is a web builder service. The number of complaints we get from members where they have bought a website that's cost a lot of money and isn't doing what they wanted to do. We're going to be launching a low-cost service where we can design a site from scratch, we can maintain it, or we can deliver it to the member who wants to develop it themselves, but with a little bit of support. So that service will come on stream in the next 2 months. We have a lot of training supplements, not just a selection of cars, but the magazine will start bringing out more supplements so we can focus in more detail on big subject areas that are important to ADIs, and the magazine itself will go through further redevelopment as we hear more ideas from members and more members come on board as contributors and writers as well. There will also be a big push on Diamond. Diamond is a very good test. I think there is a lot of clear blue water between what Diamond offers and what other competitors in the marketplace offer. It is the only test to be based on the Cardington examination route. It is only ever delivered by a professional driver trainer, and it was one of the first tests to concentrate on things like eco-driving and other aspects of advanced training, and others have followed. We need to promote that a hell of a lot better than we have done. We need to get it out there to the public in a much bigger way, and we are doing that this year. There's been plans afoot and trying to get closer to organisations who have those public individual motorists that we want to have on our books, and that's taken some time. But this year the test will be revamped. There will be new elements introduced into the test, both kind of around the test itself to incentivise people to engage in more lessons before they take the test. There will be more segments of the test, so basically we will be producing tests for older drivers, a new driver Diamond test, not just for traditional licence holders, and we'll be improving that across rider and driver as well. That will mean some retraining to some extent and some reaccreditation of some Diamond examiners and trainers, but we will make that as easy and accessible as we can for trainers, and that will be supported by, once everything is in place and we have a new product and everybody's refreshed on their skills and their delivery, a marketplace being there to actually deliver that product to at the same time. There'll also be new membership benefits for people who are in the Diamond Club, creating a lot more services that people can access, more discounts associated with leisure motoring for individual members. So a heck of a lot more push on that side of our services. Diamond is very well respected, particularly abroad as well, where we do a lot of accreditation and testing, but we need to just do something much more in the UK than we do. We'll also be trying to do much more in fleet. We get a lot of demand for fleet work. We're trying to stimulate a lot more of that, introduce new aspects of fleet training, not just going out doing an assessment in a car with an occupational driver who doesn't want to be there 9 times out of 10, signing them off and letting them merrily go on their way. We want to do something that has got more long-term impact on both the driver and the company's attitude to driving as well. So we're going to be working with some key partners to do that, and again, we won't be going out and delivering that on the road. As we develop our work there and as we develop a customer base there, we will need top quality fleet trainers to come and work with us to deliver that work. So there's a lot of opportunity, again, for members to get involved in the expansion of Diamond, both in the UK but internationally. We get a lot of demand for international training contracts. Those have been serviced by our team here, but as that demand grows and the contracts get bigger, I need guys and girls who can go out into the field overseas and who've got an interest to do that and do some delivery of training, testing and accreditation services there as well. So again, get in touch with training@driving.org. They will have all the details if you're interested in sending a CV now, but if not, keep an eye on this space and you'll see more news on that as we go. I have just dashed through all the things that I wanted to talk to you guys about, being very provider-led. I'm going to go on to some questions that people have sent in as we've been talking, and a couple that I was sent in the last few days as well. So, number one, question one, will the spring conference cover issues with age-related conditions? Yes, they will. We're going to go across the age span, so we're going to look at novice driver issues and how young age causes issues there, and how kind of development of between 16 to 25 has an impact on risk and on driving. However, we are going to focus very heavily on the other side of the age spectrum. We're going to look at the issues that older drivers have, but also the opportunities that older drivers have as well. So we will look across the range there. We're not just focused on novice drivers like everybody else seems to be. We are going to be, in this day, and a range of other tools that we bring in this year in training courses, be looking at, as drivers get older, what are the impacts of age on driving, and what can we do to enable people who can drive for longer, but equally, how do we manage the scenarios where people aren't able to drive anymore, and dealing with those challenges there. So definitely the spring conference is going to cover issues like that. We'll also look at occupational drivers. That's not necessarily age, but it's looking at that middle age of driving where we're driving with lots of different pressures. We could be driving from work, and there's lots of other things going on there that impact our driver behaviour. Will the fuel card be for all garages? I'm trying. That's one of the parts that's taking me a bit longer, is just putting that rigour on. Does this card cover as many outlets as I know that my members need to use? The card that we're looking at the moment covers more or less every single fuel outlet in the UK, and predominantly also covers the supermarkets where we know some of the cheapest fuel pricing actually occurs. So yes, the accessibility of the card and where you can use it has been really important in our decision-making process. So I'm going to make sure it's received in as many outlets as possible. If I want to be a trainer delivering course of DIA, what do I need to send to Olivia? Your CV would be really good in the first instance. We are going to create a form to send out to people. But as part of delivery of training is about presentation skills, it's about selling the kind of course, the concepts, the knowledge and skills as much as you're selling yourself. We would like to see people's CVs and see how you present yourself. If you have time, or if you already have it, any videos as well that you have of yourself training, or a short piece to camera, is really useful to see how you present, because that's obviously a huge part of training as well. Will the fuel card give me cheaper fuel? It will not promise, as no fuel card should, and they're regulated not to make this promise, that you will always get the cheapest price because of that fuel card, because fuel prices fluctuate every single day. And so there may always be a pump round the corner from where you use your fuel card that's just slashed its prices at that moment. However, the fuel card company's job is to monitor fuel pricing on a daily level and make sure that their members, which they have thousands of, they are fuel card operators for fleets as well as organisations like us, are the cheapest they get. So on average, yes, they will be the most competitive prices at pump that you can get to. But I'm not going to make you the promise that it's if you were to drive around all the stations on that day, that you wouldn't get a cheaper price. It is a general aggregate scheme which looks to provide the cheapest prices, and because it goes across the biggest number of fuel retailers, it is a greater opportunity to get the cheapest price. It will also help you factor paying for fuel as well, and have a longer time to pay off that fuel on a monthly basis rather than paying at pump at the time. There's also other discounts on other services that you get with this card too. Can I call the DIA as a member and get website advice? Don't come to us for webinar advice. No, we're very technically savvy. Yes, you can. You can call us about anything. The reality is the ADI Help Desk, we've worked to have a range of expertise, not just on driver training issues. You are small businesses, I'll reiterate that, so you're not just focused on that. So if you've got a website and you need advice about how to develop it, if you haven't got a website and you're thinking about getting one, if you're having trouble with somebody who's hosting or maintaining your website, give us a call. We've more or less seen it all. I've developed websites for huge multinational organisations, and I've developed sites for little organisations, so I have got quite a bit of knowledge of how to create and develop websites. Amy's got a lot of expertise. Matt actually runs a DIA website. Sometimes a bit of a case of cobbler's children have no shoes, in that it's not the cutting edge that we would like it to be because we're so busy going around giving advice on other people's. However, we're planning to overhaul our websites this year, and in that process we can learn a lot, and you can learn a lot from what we're doing too. So any business related issues, any driver training issues, any time you want advice on anything, give that help desk a call. If we're not available there and there, give us an email, and we promise we'll respond as quickly as we can do. There's always somebody here that has the answer. When we don't know the answer, we will go and find out. We'll tell you don't know the answer, but we'll go and research that answer for you. I like the DIA Essential Guide to the Standards book. What other books are you doing? We've got some ideas about things we could be doing. So a business handbook, a driver behaviour book, some other kind of things around coaching and things like that. But we're going to do some research amongst members about what topics in particular you'd like a handbook. We like the handbook approach. We don't want to give you a massive War and Peace type book to look through. We want something that's accessible, bite-sized pieces of information, but it's great to have some steer from new members about what are the books. Generally, what we're going to try and do is every professional development day that we do, the one-day courses, we'll try and have a training resource that goes alongside that you can keep or you can use on its own as part of the course, and we'll keep those pricing consistent. We see similar books being published around the £45 to £50 mark, and we deliberately avoided going there. It doesn't actually cost that much to produce a book in this day and age. It costs a lot of my team's time to put their work into it, and that's probably undervalued in the pricing that we've got. However, we want people to be able to buy these things and keep them, scribble on them, do what they want to do with them. So we'll try and keep the cost low but deliver you a very high quality content as well. So it's good to hear that people have enjoyed that book. I've got some questions that I was given before today. Jonathan, I think it is, who is actually one of our GPC members, has asked us, what are the prospects of motorway tuition with DVSA ADIs in due controlled school vehicles being sanctioned? Basically, what is the prospect of ADIs being able to deliver a motorway lesson? I think you're saying, Jonathan, pre-test. Everybody talks about graduated driving licence like it's the silver bullet that's going to solve all the issues that we have with novice drivers. Actually, a lot of driver trainers don't see it that way, and a lot of us are concerned that if we focus on a lot of post-test measures, we're kind of shutting a door after the horse has bolted. We've given somebody a licence. You go figure how you're going to restrict that in practice when we've already got really poor policing resources in some areas. Not poor because they're poor quality, but just because there's a focus on decreasing some police resources, not increasing them. So having to go and look out for whether somebody's driving with their cousin rather than their friend, or whether they're driving against a curfew and all the other restrictions is not going to be a goer, and is certainly not going to come in this government anyway. And so we're kind of lobbying a lot of the time when we go and talk to politicians and the minister on what can we do with pre-test, because to me personally we haven't got that bit right yet to be talking so much about restricting licences at the other end. We need to focus on getting in there earlier with driver education into schools, into the curriculum, but also what can we assess, test and deliver more training on before they even go to the test centre. We would personally like to see here at DIA that the practical test is just one assessment on the road to getting your licence, perhaps a final assessment, but other assessments have gone before. The DFT, the Department for Transport, in meetings that we've had with them, have been supportive of that focus. They have said themselves, and actually in the draft green paper, that they would like to see a pre-test lesson that is assessed and tested on motorway driving and on after dark driving as well. And ministers have actually signalled that there would be some support from that. We know there would be a bit of a road to go down to actually get kind of the regulation in place to allow learners onto the motorway. However, it is not an impossibility. It is something that ministers are talking about. There are discussions about how it would practically work, so that means it's an idea that's going forward, and it's got our full support as well. Our view is that only an ADI, not any other kind of driver trainer in inverted commas, only somebody holding that green badge should be able to take a learner on the motorway pre-test. That is the best way to mitigate risk in a dual control car with a professional driver trainer, and it's also a way of making sure that people are having at least some lessons with a professional driver trainer as well, and that would apply to after dark training as well. We'd like that to go across a range of competencies, and we'd like to see a position where students and pupils have to have a number of lessons or a number of hours or pass a number of competencies that only an ADI could assess and sign off on before they even go to that test centre. That's not a fantasy. That is something that when you explain the practical basis of how that could be applied in real life and you give the business case for it, ministers are prepared to listen to. The issue, it hasn't maybe come up in the debate before, is because I don't actually think a good argument has been put forward that politicians can actually see the economic and the regulatory sense of. Now we're getting a little bit of somewhere by realising we have to go in and sell these concepts rather than expecting ministers just to take them and run with them. So there is a real and distinct possibility that we could see in the next 5 to 10 years that students are going onto motorways pre-test and being assessed with ADIs on that. But for us, it has to be with an ADI in a dual control car as well. So there is certain things that are moving forward. It's not that there isn't any interest in doing it about young drivers from a regulatory point of view. It's just picking and choosing the battles and what we'll get through. It's not always the government. Bear in mind, us voters are used often as an excuse for not doing anything, as in the electorate won't like it, they won't vote for it. But I don't see why we would, other than the road haulage industry maybe, vote against some kind of learning on motorways, because we identify it as a big problem that novice drivers have when they get the licence. Bit of a, I don't know whether you'd view this a controversial question or not from one of our delegates here. What is the relationship between DIA and MSA in terms of increasing power and profile by merging, and what's the relative relationship in terms of size? DIA is the largest membership body by quite a long way, and that's even basing it on the figures that other people give out. Our membership figures are audited. We're quite clear about our membership size. We're probably twice the size of our nearest other association, and I think MSA is slightly smaller than that. So we're probably double the size of that membership. I work with John and Peter on a regular basis in our consultative group, National Association Student Partnership. We enjoy actually a very cordial relationship, a very humorous relationship. We feel can be very open with each other, and there are initiatives that I am planning to go and talk to MSA in particular with this year, and NJC as well. There are things that we can do in a much more joined up way, and I am incredibly open to that, and I always have been, and so are the team here. So watch this space. There could be more collaboration between those groups, and certainly I think it's a sensible thing to have more collaboration. In terms of a merger, that is something that, I don't know whether either party's got an appetite for that at the moment. It could be an interesting path to pursue, but I'd welcome MSA's views on that one as well. I'm not going to comment on their part. And I think that is it in terms of questions that I've actually had. If anybody's got any further questions, pop them up on the screen now. If not, please send them to us afterwards, and I'm sure we'll have them once we publish them, the presentation online afterwards. But I'd just like to thank you all for your time today. Sorry that it's been a whistle-stop tour, just trying to make the most of your time. Thanks for your continued support and interest in what we're doing here, and I look forward very much to working with you all in 2015 and helping us transform and take forward the professional driver training industry. Thank you.